Welcome to the Adelaide Property Pod, a series of conversations with industry experts shaping South Australia's real estate market. Today I'm joined by Alex Ouwens, Executive Director and co-founder of OC Real Estate, and we're unpacking what's really happening in the Adelaide market, how buyers are behaving, and what's coming next. Alex, thanks so much for joining me and welcome to the show.
Robbie, thanks for having me.
Before we get into the market specifically, I'd love to hear just a little bit about yourself. Now, I think you told me recently you've been about 20 years in the industry now. Is that right?
Yeah, so quickly, 20 years in the industry, started off in a sales role. After 5 years, started my own business, co-founded with Nathan Casserly. We were with a franchise group at the time. And then 3 years later, we started OC as an independent brand. And we've enjoyed a really fun, exciting journey to grow to 8 offices, 170, 180 staff. We sell 1,500 homes a year and manage about 4,000 properties on our book. So it gives us our rental book. So that gives us a pretty good barometer on what's happening in the Adelaide marketplace, you know, what we're seeing as far as trends go from vendors' perspective, from tenants, landlords, purchasers. So yeah, we get to feel what's happening in the marketplace and happy to share any insights today that might help your listeners.
Yep, absolutely. You would have launched OC at a pretty interesting time. There was some pretty strong titans of the industry, and I think of the late Brock and the late Tube. How did you approach starting Ouwens Casserly, or now OC, at that time? And was there something you tried to do a little bit different to get some momentum behind your business?
Yeah, there's been quite a lot of change in the industry over that 20 years. I mean, the fundamentals of looking after people and having their best interests at heart and all those key, values-based objectives haven't changed, but technology's changed a lot. Transparency, people's, bullshit radar is extremely high these days. So gone are the days of picking, bids from the trees during an auction, and the dog walks past and you get a bid, which is great. It's much more transparent now. We started around the GFC, so the market was pretty stagnant. So we've seen over the last 20 years several markets take place where it's been a bit of a boom in 2007, followed by GFC, and then there was a pretty long period of stagnant market, and then we've seen this extraordinary period of growth, 100% property price growth over the last 5 years, effectively. And then now, as we speak, probably a neutralising or stabilising marketplace as a result of interest rates going up, and a healthier marketplace because we can't continue to see growth of 15 to 20% year on year. It's just unsustainable. We see Melbourne and Sydney markets already sort of recoiling quite quickly, and some of my colleagues in Melbourne saying properties that were $3 million a couple of years ago are now selling for 2.7 million. And Adelaide historically doesn't have those same peaks and troughs that the eastern states do, but we're certainly seeing a softer landing in the marketplace now, and obviously with the Middle East as well, gives a bit of uncertainty to people. But it was an interesting time. We had some legends of the industry, Brocky, Tupy, Bernard Booth, and then, obviously Oren Klemick and plenty of others that we were competing against. And I suppose Nathan and I just said to ourselves at the time, let's just have a go. We had built up a bit of a team around us where we had our own selling teams, and we were enjoying some momentum and regular referrals and business coming to us. So I think we were probably a fresh new alternative to the marketplace at the time that was just looked a little bit different. So we looked at it as an opportunity rather than potentially as a negative, and probably also being in our early 30s at the time, maybe a little bit of naivety as well. A lot of our real estate mentors, life mentors said, it's probably not the best time to do it. The market's tough. Maybe just wait a little bit longer, and probably galvanized us a little bit to say, as Richard Branson says, screw it, let's do it.
Yep.
So we just gave it a crack, and you do need to have a bit of luck along the way too. Opportunity meets kind of luck, and then the two combined. And some of that luck was that we developed some great relationships with our peers in the industry, and as we started our own business, some of those peers, other sales colleagues, maybe weren't that content where they were in their current work environment, whether it was culturally related or maybe the owner was at the end of their career. So we had quite a few calls from agents to say, hey, look, can we join you guys? And we said, look, we've got no idea what we're doing. We've got plenty of energy, and we'll always tell it straight and tell you how it is, what we're doing well, where we need to improve, and maybe a little bit of that fresh approach and authenticity cut through. So we had some really good growth quite quickly as a result of probably some work that we'd done in building relationships previously without thinking that it would come back to reward us later.
Yep.
So it was, a great journey to begin with.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you're obviously doing something right, given the business where it is today. Now, you touched on, if we think about the market, you've touched on a couple of things there, and they're in the media, so they're hard to avoid. Interest rates, inflation, conflict in the Middle East. Do we actually feel that on the ground here in Adelaide, and how are you seeing it from your seat?
Yeah, it's a really interesting space. I mean, Adelaide is typically a bit more of a conservative marketplace. So when we have these shock effects occur, we don't tend to pull back as quickly or go gung-ho as quickly as the eastern states do. So the Middle East is a moment in time at the moment. Obviously, the impact is petrol prices, and then with potentially interest rates going up, we're seeing a little bit of caution into the marketplace. But on the whole, most people that are buying into real estate are buying for either a lifestyle reason or a longer term reason, and that is to live in the property or a longer term investment. It's really difficult, Rob, to pick the perfect time to buy or sell in any marketplace. And I think, we all know that the best time to have planted that perfect tree in your backyard, was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. So as long as that property meets your lifestyle requirements, you can afford the repayments and the serviceability, rather than trying to pick the perfect moment, it is like, get into the marketplace. And we all have, including myself, thinking back on the one that I should have bought. And, we're probably now, even if we only have 5% growth over the next year, with the median house price in Adelaide now $1 million, that's still 50,000 in growth. So, if you miss out on a property by 25 or 30,000, you're going up in that elevator, and the next stop in that elevator may be in 12 months' time at 50,000 extra. So not necessarily saying, be desperate, jump in, but be smart with your decision making around longer term investment. So we are seeing that impact. At OC, we sold still 13 out of 14 of our auctions on the weekend just gone. We're in the middle, a month into the Middle East crisis. As I was just chatting off air before with you, Robbie, Trumpy today has just said, we're going to withdraw out of the Middle East in 2 to 3 weeks. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, it certainly, in our perspective, we're seeing that marketplace starting to plateau. Whilst we sold 13 out of 14, we're not getting 6 or 10 bidders at the auctions anymore. I think you were helping a client on the weekend at one of ours.
Sorry, Nathan.
You're doing a great job for your clients. Your job is to get your clients the property for the best price possible.
Yep.
So that's understandable.
Yep.
But yeah, so now we're seeing 1 to 3 to 4 buyers at our auctions. There's a little bit more choice, so a bit more supply has come into the marketplace. So now, as a purchaser, you do have that opportunity to maybe take a little bit of control back, but at the same time, you have to be decisive. And one of the things that I've experienced in dealing with purchases over time and helping some clients buy is being really clear from the agent how they're going to handle the campaign. And I know that you do that really well on behalf of your clients, because every agent and every agency has a different way of running an auction campaign or an offers close campaign. What are the guardrails, in asking the agent, if I put an offer in now and it's an offer that that triggers the sale process before the offer's closing date, will I have an opportunity to come back to put in another offer?
Yep.
Or am I going to trigger the process and then that offer potentially be used against me and someone else puts in a higher offer and then I won't hear back from you? Could you please just let me know what your rules of engagement are so I can understand how we can best position ourselves to be in the running to secure the property? And that's the challenge, isn't it, in the marketplace for, even me having been in the industry for 20 years and I'm helping clients buy from time to time, I find it challenging. And let alone for people who only do it a few times in a lifetime. So it's so critical to be able to have someone on your team to navigate you through the market.
Yep.
And this isn't a plug for you, Robbie. I mean, it's genuine that it really, you can save so much money by understanding the process.
Yeah.
So I'll probably digress a little bit there.
No, but it's great. It's great insight and great feedback, and I'm sure listeners will take a lot out of that. If I think about, and Cotality just released their monthly home value index this morning, the mid-markets, so Perth, Adelaide, Brisbane, all had monthly growth again. Adelaide's had 37 consecutive months of growth, where we saw the big markets in Melbourne and Sydney have a slight dip.
Yeah.
What do you think, and it's probably not one silver bullet, but is it a number of factors that is giving us that sort of consistent base, or is there something more specific you put it down to?
Yeah, I saw the same report, and Adelaide again, over 1% property price growth. So annualised, that's still tracking for over 10, 12% growth. I think there's a combination of factors. We've never seen more interstate interest in Adelaide on various different levels. Speaking with some developer clients yesterday, they're now competing against interstate developers that are looking to come into Adelaide. There's a shortage of supply still. Obviously with the AUKUS down at Port Adelaide or Port Adelaide area, we're talking tens of billions of dollars of investment into the state, which it can't be understated how much of an impact that has. I was on a trip last year with some of REA, realestate.com's key clients around Australia, and I've never heard people talking about Adelaide in such a positive light outside of SA. The things that were being said were, we're taking our senior leadership team to Adelaide for our annual conference. We're coming down for the Live Golf, gather around. And we saw that impact from COVID. And obviously COVID was horrendous in many ways, but one thing that it was positive for was a lot of expats came back. The flexible working environment, with the AI kind of revolution that we're going through now, people can work from anywhere. So why wouldn't you choose to work in such an amazing state that we have here in South Australia? So there really is that positive sentiment. Hey, no doubt that people all around Australia in segments are doing it tough, inflationary pressures, but on the whole, that balance of our economy is very positive. So I think it's being underpinned by, various different factors, but mostly lifestyle related, stability in the economic and political environment. And we're certainly getting a lot of calls from buyers agents from interstate saying, hey, look, we've got clients who would like to invest. So look, I think it's broad, but still very positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was one of those beneficiaries who was able, while I was at REA, to be able to relocate back to South Australia post-pandemic and enjoy, having a role that is otherwise based out of HQ in Melbourne, but be able to do it from here. So yeah, it was only a positive, and there's always silver linings in any story. Property median days on market, I think, sitting somewhere in the 20s. Are you seeing any sort of different price points behaving differently to others? So is it tight at up to the 900K because of first home buyers, or at the Lux end, 5+ mil?
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. The first home buyer market, obviously, for again, to refresh our memories, that the government is giving a 5% guarantee. So people can, if you're a first home buyer, can buy up to 900,000 and not pay LMI or loan mortgage insurance, which can be 10, 20, 30 grand. So they can get into the market we're seeing a lot of mum and dads kind of walking their kids to these auctions saying, look, we're coming here to buy this, the 31-year-old that's still living at home.
Yep.
It's time to get you out of the house. And, they're going hard. So, there's this kind of a bit of jet fuel poured on to that part of the market. We're seeing, I live in the city of Mitcham, where, let's just say, a unit 3 or 4 years ago, cream bricker, 2 or 3 beds, maybe 10 years ago, it was maybe a lick of paint, a little bit renovated, would have gone for 500 grand. Now, 850. So it's unbelievable. That market is so hot. We had one in Norwood where we had 70 or 80 offers come in. Should have been an auction property in retrospect. Then the ultra premium market is still really strong. We're seeing the first signs of the intergenerational wealth transfer taking place. So we now, at OC in the workforce, we have 4 different generations working, from baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z, I think it is. So we did a session on a side note. We did a session with our people and culture team and all our senior leaders in the business around dealing with and managing and engaging with people from different generations. And then we did a bit of a role play, and a bit of humor was in there around how a baby boomer would handle a particular situation versus someone that's a digital native. So it's really, we're seeing some of those baby boomers that are either passing down some of their wealth to their kids before they've passed, pre-inheritance, or they're starting to pass away. So as a result of that, we're seeing maybe a estate of $10 million left to someone, and then they're buying a, inverted commas, trophy home. So we're seeing strength in that upper end market. It's probably more in that middle range, where it's a family home, potentially that sort of $2 to $3 million price point, which kind of feels unbelievable to talk about as being almost like a not affordable, but that's a middle road, good suburb, big family home property now. That there probably be a little bit of pressure in that space. You might have a couple of parents in their 40s, 2 or 3 kids, peak kind of stress and debt. Saw a report on, psychologists came out and said the most stressful age for human beings is in their mid to late 40s, because of, you're dealing with aging parents, you're dealing with your kids, you're dealing with trying to get ahead and mortgages and so on. So there's probably a little bit of stress in that space around people saying, do I have to spend? Do we really want to put the pressure on ourselves of spending $2.75 million on a property? Maybe we bring it back to 2.5. So we're seeing probably a plateauing effect. Obviously, the state government came out recently and has given some incentives, stamp duty concessions for downsizers. And that is simply a strategy of trying to encourage older people that are in bigger homes that doesn't suit their needs anymore to free that home up to a family that will use that home and get them into an apartment or a townhouse. And they want it to be brand new, to bring new product to the market, stimulate the construction industry. So that'll be interesting to see how well that's taken up. But we see a bit of a locked market where you have someone that's got a property, the kids have moved out, they're empty nesters, it's worth $3 million. They're in the market looking for an apartment. The costs for developers to build a quality apartment has gone up absolutely exponentially. So for them to actually even get close to making a small profit, they need to be selling their apartments now at $14,000, $15,000, $16,000 a square meter. And if we talk about a 3-bedroom apartment and it'd be a small one at 100 square meters, you're talking high 1 millions there.
Yep.
But you're probably, for that type of person, they'd want it to be closer to 150 square meters, maybe even 200. So you're looking at maybe, say, $2.5 million for an apartment, a big apartment. And then they say to themselves, what am I actually looking to achieve here? By the time I pay stamp duty on the $2.5 million, call it 5%. So what's that? 125, 150,000, removalist. those damn expensive real estate agents
Yep.
as well that we charge, and all the associated costs, removalists, and all of those things. They think, well, I'm going to probably 500 grand might disappear by the time I'm
Yep.
done, so we'll just stay where we are.
Yep.
So look, credit to the current state government for looking to try to release more and more land as quickly as possible. Obviously, SA Water has a big bank up of jobs to do, and that's what's fundamentally slowing down the supply coming to the market. They're kind of flying the plane and fixing it at the same time. A lot of our water pipes are,
Yep.
at the end of their natural lifeline. So fixing those, trying to bring new water into new developments, the Walker Corporation out at Riverlea ended up building their own water facility so they could expedite it.
Yep.
So that's fundamentally also underpinning property prices maintaining their stability, because it's difficult for developers to get new stock to the market. Construction costs, with the Middle East issue, any products now that lean on petroleum, crude oil will go up in price. So if you're building a $2 million house, you have these line items in the build that are reliant on petrol, like PVC piping, concrete. So all those line items will probably go up 20% in cost or so. And it'll take, and even if Middle East settles down in, 6, 12 months, it's so rare that you ever see that those prices will just go back to what they were before. That's kind of the new normal. So what would that mean for a $2 million build? If you look at those line items and you see it as a net effect, it might increase the cost of the build by 3 to 8% or so. So it's difficult then for developers to make a margin. So then how are we going to get new property to the market? And that's why property prices are still going to maintain their stability, even in an environment where interest rates might go up another 0.5% or so.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot at play, and hopefully things start to settle down. But like you said, it's not going to be a flick of the switch and we see results overnight. So that's only going to, in my opinion, continue to increase prices here locally in Adelaide. Yeah. Talk to me about buyer mistakes. I hear clients come to me, they've been in the market for 2 years, but I've seen someone purchase in a week. Where are buyers getting it wrong, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, being prepared, when you've made the decision that you're in the market, obviously being able to have your finance approved, having to work with, someone like yourself or someone that understands what they're doing in that space to get a really good feel for what properties are worth. Getting your strategy in place around, are you buying first or are you selling first? Do you want to get bridging finance? So you can see even just those points, some people go, it's all too hard. So to speak to a professional that can help you in that order of events and what you're truly looking to achieve out of your purchase, they're the first things. And it's not difficult now to put all those thoughts into one of the AI engines, Claude or ChatGPT, just put it on audio mode and just have a chat and just let them know everything that you're thinking. And then it'll order your thoughts a little bit for you. And that's a really good starting point. And then from there, you then engage someone that you trust, that understands property, and then you start to get yourself, organized. Nothing worse than, I've seen it before so many times, where people enter the marketplace and then they see the property that would have really suited their requirements, but they just don't have their strategy in place. And like anything, like my 3 kids, when they are sitting a test at school, if they've prepared for the tests, they understand what's coming up, they know what they need to achieve, they know what their strategy is, there's a much better chance of them getting a better grade. And I see the same thing in, all aspects of life, and no different in property. So the first thing is to truly understand what you're looking to achieve, and then make sure you're in a position to purchase. It's so rare that in this sort of still, whilst it's a normalizing market, it's so rare that a vendor will accept a subject to sale. If they do accept it, it means the property is potentially either a bit overpriced or it's been sitting on the market for some time, so there might be some issues with the home. Not in all cases, it's a generalization. But if you can put yourself into a position where you can make an unconditional offer and find out what the problem that the agent's trying to resolve for their client, or what's important to the seller. Is it the highest price? Is it settlement period? Is it certainty? Some sellers like to sell without much fuss. For some personal reasons, they want to sell it without going on the portals. They don't want the signboard up. They don't want neighbours to find out, whatever it might be. So then if that's the case, then how do you work with them to get a result that helps them? So asking questions to the agent around what's important to the seller in this process.
Giving away all my secrets now,
Yeah.
mate. You put me out of a job. Even in a tight market, there's always opportunity. If you were buying today, and you had a budget of, let's say, $1 million, which is the median, where would you be buying and why?
As an investment property to rent
Let's
out?
say it's an investment property, yep.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's personal circumstances are different. So again, that comes back to what your investment strategy is. So typically, you can purchase a property that might be in an area or in a development that'll give you a higher yield. Say, OC sold the 240 apartments in the Adelaide Central Market redevelopment, and their practical completions coming up in the next few months. There'll be really good yield on those apartments. They'll be in high demand. If you want to live in the CBD in an apartment, you might as well live where you can get your fruit and veg. There's going to be cafes. You're going to be right in the heart of it. And it's a super tall building. It's above a hotel, so it's quiet in your room. So that'll give you a really super high yield. What will the capital appreciation be like in the long term? Well, historically, in Adelaide, the thought process has been that apartments don't appreciate as quickly as houses do. But given this gap between the value of housing and apartments simply by affordability and also the aging population and how people are time poor, there's been a real shift over the last couple of years towards acceptance and embracing of apartment living. In addition to that, because it's so expensive for developers to develop a new apartment building, there's been a gap in that space. 20 or 30 years ago, there was been a few apartment buildings that were built. They were quite beige, vanilla, not well constructed, and there was a bit of a hangover of apartments aren't good value, whereas that narrative is slowly changing. And then if your investment strategy is more around maybe a capital appreciation play in the long term, you might want to look at maybe a slightly bigger block that could be subdivided down the track. So maybe move a little bit further out of the CBD metro area into an area where you know that block can be subdivided, and perhaps there's some talk that they might even make it more dense further. So if you can get a 1,000 square meter block and it can currently be cut into two, and it's got an old 50s home on it that's in okay condition, and maybe a lick of paint and a new sort of, IKEA type kitchen in there, and then it'll be a good rental property. Your yield might not be as high, but in the long term, you might be able to knock it down, get approval for two on there, build one, sell one. And then if you want to keep that in the long term, there's higher depreciation benefits off your tax if you've got a brand new property. So again, it's getting the right advice from, what your personal circumstances are. But, I'm a big believer in investing in an industry where I understand what I'm doing in it.
Yep.
There's one school of thought of, diversifying your investments across different industries. But if you listen to Warren Buffett, that is if people do not know what they're doing in any one particular industry. So double down in a space that you understand. So I'm a believer in being able to see the asset. Real estate is a fundamental need, in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I understand it, and people do tend to understand it in Australia. We're obsessed by real estate. I can't see that changing. So if you can start your journey of having a mixed portfolio. So what I see as diversification is in real estate, but maybe having a couple of higher yielding assets and then some assets you can add some value to later on.
Yeah, awesome. I'm in your camp, mate. I'm a bricks and mortar guy. I think I'll stick with that. One more before I let you go. You and I are sitting in these chairs 12 months from now. What happens to property prices in Adelaide? Crystal ball.
Yeah, well, as we sat here this morning, the Don said that he's withdrawing out of the Middle East. So that will obviously restore some confidence back into the marketplace. But I see it as a moment in time anyway. The fundamentals of Adelaide are strong. I think when we're sitting here in 12 months' time, we'll see interest rates would have gone up one more, Westpac are thinking 3 right now as we sit here today. Most of the other banks are thinking 1. I think it'll be 1 to 2 at the most. I think the market can absorb that. And we'll just see a tapering of property prices where we might start to see 0.5% growth every month instead of 1, which is great. If we can see a stabilizing market where it's 5 or 6% growth each year, inflation kind of starts to get under control, that's a healthier market. I worry about how a lot of people are worrying about how their kids will get into the marketplace. So if we can reflect back on 2026 to 2027 of the year where things just stabilized, I think it'll be a good result.
Alex, as insightful as ever. Love chatting, mate, and appreciate you coming onto the show.
Thanks for having us, Robbie.
Thanks for listening to the Adelaide Property Pod. If you've enjoyed the conversation, make sure you're following the show so you don't miss the next episode. I'll see you next time.